How you doing, boys and girls? Sorry about that. Couldn't help myself. Ah, when I lost a lot of weight after my wife died, I kind of did the same thing. I'd lose a good amount of weight, and then, like, I'd gain 5 pounds, and then I lose and just be like these little dips. And it says I gained 4 pounds. I know what it's from. I bought this organic blueberry pound cake. Take a couple slices out and smear on very thickly. Smear on some butter. And do butter squared, regular butter, and then I scoop out some organic sunflower butter. If you've never had sunflower butter, by the way, man, it's good. Smear on top of the regular butter, sunflower butter. Must be why I gained 4 pounds. Oh, man. It's actually really bad to, like, religiously, super religiously, look at the scale. Like I said, early videos, you can see I used to be 138 pounds. Actually, I got down to 128. And I came back from Florida. Everybody thought I was dying or something. Oh my God, what's wrong with you? You look like you're dying. I was like, no, I just didn't eat anything and did a lot of exercise. I did a lot of exercise today. Man, it's really hot out there. I'm going to say something before actually doing the main part of this video. It's going to sound slightly nutty, but if you think about it, it's hyper-rational, logical, and a lot of people I know are actually doing it, including myself. I'll tell you something I've done. I basically got nothing. Donations have fallen off like 95% because everybody's at the grocery store. The expendable income that people have for basically everything is essentially, well, let's be honest, it's non-existent. The statement I like to make in like a 2-minute segment here before starting the main part of the video is that you should think about getting, and you need to decide what percentage that is relative to your situation, whether you have a wife or kids, you have a mortgage or don't have a mortgage, is to get your money out of money. If you think about that, superficially that sounds pretty stupid, but it's actually hyper-rational. Everything, of course, is about asset diversification. I'm actually practicing what I preach on that front, but get your money out of money. It's up to you to determine what percentage that is or is not. What very little that I have, and people don't get how really, really cheap Kentucky land is, for the most part, even though land's doing this number everywhere. I'm actually getting a spring. It's less than an acre of land, but there's this stone little square fence. It's like 5 foot by 5 foot and about 3 feet deep. And there's a little stone fence that was built around there by the settlers sometime in the early 1800s or mid-1800s. And it's adjoining my farm. And it's very easy access, and I'm buying it. There's this little bubbling spring that comes out, and it fills up this pool. It's about the size of a large bathtub. If I wanted to, you could take a bath in it. However, since you want to drink from it, it'd be no big deal because it overflows. But I'm buying a spring because I don't know about you, but spring water that's bubbling out of the center of the mountain, it's crystal clear and drinkable. I mean, that's just gold. I mean, it's essentially better than gold. It feeds you, it feeds your plants. So I'm getting less than an acre of land that's got a spring in the middle of it. So that's what extremely little amount of income. I sold a few things actually recently, and so that's actually what I'm getting. I'm going to go down there tomorrow. I'm showing people pictures of it in live stream, by the way. Here's 5 things to consider about the collapse. I want to talk about free energy and technology and about where humanity is headed. Not so much about what you probably think I'm talking about. This is just a little tiny section of that before I start the main part of the video. 5 L's, I call it. Land, easy to figure out. Lead, I'll let you figure out what lead means. HVL, high velocity lead. Land, lead, lumber, learning, i.e. skills, know how to fix things and build things and do things. And for me, it's leather. I can make tons of clothing. I just sold a buffalo bag that was hanging back here behind me. I made a few of those. I just shipped out 3 leather belts. I shipped out an alligator wallet. I didn't think I had any alligator left, and I magically found a piece that was hidden. And the reason I don't have more alligator, everybody wants it from me, is that alligator is super, super expensive, and I got to travel to South Central Florida to pick it up. Let's talk about free energy and explosion tech versus field propulsion tech. I mean, we see Amish people riding around. It depends on where you live at. Here in Kentucky, there's quite a few Amish and Mennonites, but the Amish, they ride around in horse and buggy. And, you know, in the horse and buggy days, the idea of a gasoline-powered engine, you know, like the Little House on the Prairie days, right? 1800s, 1700s. I mean, that just looks like some sort of futuristic alien demon tech. And everything that we're currently doing in our lives, and things that would actually change basically everything. We imagine a completely different society. And I'm not talking about utopian nonsense. If everybody lived to be 200 years old and had a free house and a free car, and they never had to worry about buying things like food, and we had one of those things like from Star Trek where you could just say what you want made and it would instantly materialize it, people would still be miserable and greedy and envious because, you know, the neighbor's wife is hotter than your wife, or, you know, their house is cooler than your house, or they're, you know, younger than you are, and, you know, you're old and broken down. So even in that utopian ideal that people desire, it would still just be bottomless amounts of misery and desire. But one thing that would actually happen, since I'm not talking about utopianism and all, I don't believe in that garbage, it's complete and total poppycock, because if that were the case with humanity, everything would still be exactly as I said. Envious, greed, fear, anger, bottomless desire. It's like, how could they have fear and greed and anger and all the current, you know, misery of human existence if everybody lived to be 200 years old, there's no such thing as cancer, all medical care is free, you know, free house, you know, free food, because that doesn't change, you know, the nature of the human heart, which gets back, unfortunately, to primordial agnosis. But there are a couple things that would actually transform society, and they are available, but we're being kept from it because you and me, to whatever degree, to a greater or lesser degree, depending on how we decide to live our lives, you know, we're living like, you know, sheep on a farm. And you don't realize that you and I are sheep on a farm. And these people that think that they're the farmers of humanity, you know, they look at us exactly like that, like cattle, like sheep, you know. You know, from the perspective of the sheep or the cows, like, you know, I got a life of leisure here. You know, the farmer takes care of my health, and he gives me free food and oats and a barn to stay in. It's like, yeah, but he's, you know, he's bringing you to a point, and that point is something you don't see and you don't realize. The same is being done to us, but the cage that we actually have is quite a few things, of course. Free energy actually is available. I actually thought, excuse me, for a very, very long time that free energy was completely impossible until you make the realization, and I can consider myself, and I am an expert on field theory, that there's no such thing as an AC generator. A generator is producing something out of something else, and that's not the case. The kinetic input from any so-called AC generator is not a transformation of that kinetic energy into electricity or power. A cake generator would be a person. If you have all the ingredients laying before you and you actually take, you know, the flour and the eggs and all the thing, you generate a cake. Well, you actually took something else and you transformed it into something. Same is true of the leather work that I do. I took the leather and I cut it and shaped it until these things make wallets and belts out of it. But an AC generator doesn't work that way. It actually manifests it because it's a specific arch form, and there is a specific arch form for free energy. The only way these field propulsion craft can work is not by nuclear power, not by, certainly not by explosion tech, and everything humanity currently uses, except for really dark projects from Skunk Works and Lockheed Martin and Martin Marietta. There's an inner sanctum, a sanctum sanctorum, where this technology has been known about. You could say, well, it's backwards engineered alien technology, but there are certain aspects of humanity that are actually quite intelligent, and they could actually figure out what actual anti-gravity is. Gravity, of course, is a direction towards increasing inertia and acceleration towards rest by actually having a repulsor vector to the vector of acceleration, like, say, a ship or anything else towards the Earth, and I've talked about this endlessly. You actually have what we call anti-gravity. It's like, well, if you understand what gravity truly and actually is, which is not an autonomous field modality, rather an anti-field, an acceleration towards rest or a null, if you actually create, and of course everything works off of the right-hand rule, a repulsing vector towards the vector of acceleration. This is anti-gravity. And then, of course, you have to control the vector in which it travels. And this requires an enormous, super enormous, and recently, by the way, there was recorded confirmed reports of a barbell-shaped anti-gravity craft. And based upon the graph and the distance it was at and the power actually being put off by the craft was generating something on the order of 100 or 200,000 person city worth of power. And the only way that kind of power could exist can't be from nuclear, and it can't be from explosion tech. All our current rocket technology, whether it be hydrazine or liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen, all of that's explosion tech. The only way it could actually work was through a arch form that conventional humanity, and by conventional humanity I'm talking about people that are not part of the sanctum sanctorum, that have access to, whether it's backwards engineered alien craft or whether it's actually developed. And of course there was the De Glocke created by the Germans, and it actually was an anti-gravity craft. And one guy who actually saw it work, he said there was this 1 foot by half a foot channel that fed these gigantic cables to De Glocke that caused it to levitate, an anti-gravity craft. I mean, you actually go to the specific place in Germany, there's a video of it, anybody could go there. That channel that goes to this now torn down building, that channel that fed enormous amounts of electricity from a small power plant to feed that anti-gravity technology still exists. Anybody, like, there's the box this guy was talking about. We have Project Paperclip, but I'm getting to the point that the field technology for actual free energy does exist, but if that were released upon the world, that would be setting the sheep free. One thing the farmer doesn't want is for some goofball to open up the gate and go, free, you're free, you know, sheep, you know, go out into the woods, you know, the farmer can't, you know, harvest you for your wool and your meat. That's not what the farmer wants, and free energy technology would do that, and it would really, really piss off the people who consider themselves to be the farmers of humanity. The same is true of money. I mean, it's completely ridiculous that we're forced to believe that we should work 60 years to be free for 10 years or less. A lot of people, including myself, have been picking on Gen Z who are doing quiet quitting. I mean, they're so lazy. They're too lazy to do their job. You know, everybody should actually do the job that they promised that they would do. There's a coach who has a wood plaque above his door that says, just do your job. I encountered that today from some lying Gen Zers or millennials. You know, they do things that I would get fired for, but from their perspective, and I can see it from their perspective, it's like, why should I do this job? You know, it's just paying me enough to be totally enslaved. You know, back in my time, I sound old saying my time, I'm 51 years old. If I worked really, really hard, you know, you could buy a house, and you know, you could own your own car and have a family and all that other good stuff, and people were a whole lot happier. I mean, they really, really were a lot happier. There's still misery everywhere, but way happier than our current generation of millennials and Gen Zers. But I know why they're doing it. It's like, why should I do this? I'm throwing my life away. I'll never be able to afford a house. They're too expensive. And they're right, it is too expensive. So we're stressed out about money and we're stressed about energy. But the two things that keep us most enslaved, and there's a long laundry list of it, is the release of free energy and the elimination of money. I know they're trying to drive us to this point of, you know, you'll own nothing and be happy. Well, if that's the case, then, you know, all striving is out the window. You know, I'm never going to own anything. Why should I do anything at all? People actually have to have incentives, you know, the carrot and stick, you know, you got to dangle the carrot in front of the donkey. But the end of explosion tech, which is what we currently have, due to the release of free energy devices, because once again, an AC generator doesn't generate anything, it actually manifests power. And the fact that there's actually a phase disparity on every magnetic field, and by the way, that's how an AC generator works. It's an inside-out magnet. The dielectric field is on the outside, and the magnetic field is on the inside, exactly the opposite of nature. And by rotating that magnetic field with respect to time, doesn't generate electricity at all. What it causes is the manifestation of power by churning up the ether. This is what Charles Proteus Steinmetz, Nikola Tesla, and all of our Heaviside knew what an AC generator was. They were a specific arch form that manifested power. You think that's a distinction without a difference, but it's not. If we actually had the release of free energy and the elimination of chasing after money, you know, this whole world would flip on itself. But it would flip on itself. There would be turmoil for probably 4 or 5 years, but things would get a lot better. Right now, we actually have one half of the world or more trying to scam or cheat the other half of the world. Everybody is miserable. It's like, well, things are so much easier now. We're not dying of typhus and all the other stuff, dengue fever like they were, back in Grandpa's time. It's like, well, yeah, we generally live longer. Actually, however, the prognosticated period of someone's termination in life, both men and women, has gone down because everybody is so miserable. We have all this great technology, but all it does is just stress us out more. I mean, life has become more convenient, but ironically way more miserable, way more stressful, and a far less wholesome life. Clamoring for possessions and clamoring for dominance, What if we actually had an end to, and we were taught this, an end to most beliefs, and I'm not talking about, eliminating out people's firm convictions and things. And by the way, don't ever call me an atheist. That's a real insult. An end to beliefs and objective desires. This idea that, and it's way worse now than it was in my time, that you're going to work 60 years so you could have about, 5 to 10 years of freedom before you kick the bucket. But the 5 or 10 years that you're free is when you're so miserable and broken down, the things that you used to want to do, you don't care about anymore because you're too old and broken down. And, I, as well as everybody else, is pointing the finger accurately at the incredible laziness of Gen Z and millennials. I must be objective and rational and put my belief systems on the back burner and realize, they do get it. It's like, what am I doing this for? I'll never be able to afford it. I'm still living with my parents, not me. Still living with my parents. Still living with my parents, can't make ends meet. I'm working myself, that's why they call it quiet quitting, and I know why they're doing it. We have to end this education system. The education system we have is the opposite of an education system. I have told you, and I say this, putting my life on the line. I mean it through every pore of my being. It's not what I think or feel or believe. It's a hardcore, undeniable, bleeping fact that there is a shortcut, a super major shortcut to a superior education. The desire to learn and to know and understand gets burned out of all these people that go to public school systems. It gets burned out of them. The idea of reading and thinking and being creative, inventive, it just becomes miserable. I mean, it gets associated with the evil public education system. The greatest minds who ever lived did not go to public school systems. What they did, if you're rich and you wanted a superior education, and the Dark Ages, Middle Ages, it actually ended around about the early 1700s, is that you read Plato and Aristotle and Plotinus and stuff like the Petaphysian, and you learned how to think. You don't have to fill your head with a bunch of useless facts. We don't need to fill our heads with any of these useless facts now because all we have to do is just say Siri, for example, and then ask a question. What's 2 times 2? What's the capital of Idaho? Any useless, demonstrable, empirical fact can be brought up. We invented these stupid devices that I have everywhere in front of me so we didn't have to clutter our minds with garbage. I'm not praising anti-intellectualism. What I'm praising is not wasting one's life away filling your head full of useless empirical information rather than having a toolbox in your head about how to rationally understand, dissect things, see through things, realize what fallacies are, understand the fundamental basic mechanics of nature. If we could have free energy, which is out there, but certainly doesn't exist in the hands of conventional humanity, and we stopped chasing after money, and we had a real education, I mean, the entirety of this planet would just completely spin off its axis, except in a good way. We need to upset the apple cart. It needs to be turned over. These people, the evil people, they want exactly that. They want to turn the apple cart over, but they don't want to replace it with something good. They want to replace it with something terrible and oppressive, kind of like the coal miners back in the day where they were given funny money made out of wood, and it was publicly minted at the mine. You know, you couldn't spend that garbage money anywhere but at the mine. You went to the company store and you spent it there, and that paid your rent. So you're just working yourself to death and you never owned anything. That's exactly what they want for us, that sort of coal miner mentality. Work really hard. We'll give you these point systems on your iPhone. You can spend it to buy groceries, and you live in your little hovel, you know, your little one-bedroom. You'll have a communal toilet at the end of the hall that you'll have a sign-up time for, so everybody could share the communal shower and toilet. That's exactly what they want. If we had no worry about money, and we didn't have to worry about energy, we would free up the mind for deeper conquests. That on top of actually a real education, which doesn't exist out there. I knew the education system was total garbage when I was super, super young, and I ignored all my teachers. Yeah, they called me a prodigy in college because I could learn a foreign language way, way infinitely faster than anybody else. I was taking college courses, and while I was still in high school, I had to get a special exemption to go to college while I was still in high school. I didn't even need to do that. I was way better than the college professors themselves. That possibility exists for everybody. You just need to see through this education system. I'm not a green person at all, but the reason why I have a lot of solar panels is so I'm not dependent upon the government or anybody else. Like, you know, if I lose every penny that I got, which is, you know, not too far away, I've still got power at my cabin. I got no problems, especially since this is Kentucky, paying $150 a year, yeah, that's what they are, in property taxes on my cabin farm. I don't know if you've ever seen this. You ever heard of a brutalist architecture? Look up the Ulster Museum in Belfast, Ireland. It's Ulster, U-L-S-T-E-R. One half of it was beautiful, and it was built in 1821, and they built an extension that's brutalist architecture, which is based in Marxism. It was added in 1964. It looks like a poo-covered porcupine was stapled onto this beautiful museum. It's the most hideous thing you've ever seen. It's like, beautiful museum, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh my God! It becomes this disgusting, brutalist, ugly, ugly eyesore just instantly. You got to see it. It was tacked on as an extension. It's literally like you took a beautiful English cottage of the highest magnitude of beauty, and you stapled on a cockroach and poo-covered single-wide trailer on the inside. Here's the addition. And it's like, oh my God, that's so ugly. You guys look it up. Look up Ulster Museum in Belfast. It is a disgusting eyesore. You know what brutalism is in foods? Because it keeps everybody miserable, and it's designed to be soul-crushing ugliness. And they want to keep us down through energy, through food, through education, or actually I'm going to call it education. Chasing after money until we're ready to drop dead and fall into a pine box. Stuff like Cheetos and soda and margarine, which is like one molecule away from literally being plastic. Beautiful foods, which I bought today. I've been eating like all organic. 99% organic for the past 3 weeks. I feel awesome! Just eating organic. Beautiful foods like figs, which I bought today. Real bread, not like Wonder Bread, which is fake bread. I bought blackberries and some red meat. There's soul-crushing ugliness from the outside. It's designed to brutalize the human spirit. It's called brutalist architecture. You should actually look it up. It's Marxist architecture. Marxist brutalist architecture is designed to crush your soul. It's the opposite of inspiring. You really got to look up the Ulster Museum in Belfast. You know, it's very beautiful. It's uplifting and inspiring and gorgeous. It's harmonic. And then the addition is the most disgusting, ugly, soul-crushing, awful eyesore you've ever seen. It literally is like it's like you threw poo on a Lamborghini or you smeared poo on the Mona Lisa. Look at that. Here's the addition to the 1821 Ulster Museum. The extension was added in. It's based in Marxism. The reason why brutalist architecture exists is designed to crush you and make you fear the government, the opposite of to inspire, that which crushes the will and the spirit. It's designed to inspire fear. Oh my God, look at that. I would hate to be locked up in that. It looks like a prison. All brutalist architecture looks like a giant pus-filled zit of oppressive Marxism. Like, oh my God, if I don't fall in line and be a perfect little robot and do what the government says, they're going to throw me in a building that looks like that. Brutalist architectures are all the government buildings across the United States. They're really hideous. You go in there to pay your taxes or go to the DMV. It is the most disgusting, uninspiring, oppressive, depressing, filthy, disgusting thing you've ever seen. It's literally designed on purpose to try to crush your will and spirit. It's the opposite of things that inspire. When people get inspired, then they feel independent. When they're independent, that pisses off the farmer. They don't want the sheep off the farm. The farmer wants the sheep, meh, eating what he feeds them, corn. They want us eating Cheetos and soda and margarine, paying our taxes and going to the DMV and these brutalist, disgusting architectures. That is what they want. They want the opposite of inspiration, which is to inspire fear. People are doing the same to themselves. Now listen, I got like 95% body coverage in tattoos, okay? I actually can go after people in general when it comes to tattoos, because I'm covered in them. But they're meant to be inspiring and beautiful. Whether you hate them or not, I don't really care. I've seen some of the most beautiful people alive, and they're all over Instagram. I'm not looking for them, just scrolling through Instagram. People that are just drop-dead gorgeous, that have not only super, super ugly, disgusting, awful, people like tattoo, like scratches, like a bear clawed their face. Like, this is somebody that is like a 10 out of a 10 on the beautiful scale, and they decided to tattoo their eyeballs, and they just, they have like, they literally look like scratches, and like some blind child tattooed their cheeks with really, really, really horrible, horrible, ugly things. Humans are doing now to themselves, and I can say this as a heavily tattooed person, with the most hideous, hideous tattoos you've ever seen. It's like, well, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and that's just absolutely not true. That's a total lie. People say that. It's a total hardcore objective and subjective lie. People are doing to themselves like what they did to this Ulster Museum in Belfast. Purposely, and all of this are warning signs that humanity is on the brink. And we are on the brink. Right on the edge. It could either be a turning point towards the good, but there's an enormous amount of these evil entities, you know who I'm talking about, I humorously call them Hydra, that are trying to destroy everything, and they're doing a good job at it, and humanity's letting them. That's because you've been horribly treated by the education system, chasing after money so you can pay for energy, which should be free, and it could be free, all to keep the farmer happy. There's just so much that's going wrong. I want to see the sunny side of things. I'm not, you're doom and gloom. I'm not doom and gloom. I'm saying this is exactly what's going on. And it could all change overnight. And if it doesn't, you could certainly be free of it. I'm, to the best degree that I can. I mean, I could be free overnight. I would have to make a lot of really drastic changes, but I can make it happen. Not only that, I know how to do it. I'd have to totally change every bit of my lifestyle, but it may come to that point very, very soon that I might have to do that. So tell me what you think. I read every comment. I know this is a kind of an odd video, but I really wanted to make it. Thank you for watching. Lux e Veritas. This is beautiful, by the way. It's natural. This is inspiring. I could stare at this for hours and have deep thoughts. Yeah, perfect example. Surround us things with that are beautiful and inspiring. Not the ugliness that these people want us to consume. They want us to consume it in our mouths, and they want us to consume it in our eyes. And my answer to them is no. My answer to them is get where I'm going with that? Thanks for watching.